Hello, everyone, and welcome to Educationally Rewired. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Deidre Stevens, and my co host, Zandra Webb, will
Hey,
be joining
everybody.
us today. So, we have some great things to talk about tonight.
Yes, we do.
Okay, we really do. It's so disgusting, the things that we're going to say.
Love it. Ready.
Absolutely. So, Webb, what is going on in the news today?
Well, I was reading this here article, and let me just share with you. This article is kind of something that touches on me all in the feels because I understand. It says Pasco School Board poised to set rules for parents behaving badly. We tired of you coming up to the schoolhouse, as Paula would say, acting a fool.
Acting a fool. That's actually the video that I'm recording today for my TikTok. Is about parents coming up to the school and doing their thing. But we'll talk more about that later. Back to the article. I'm glad actually that a school board would take action to create some kind of policy for parents, to behave.
I
And
totally
it's sad that you have to talk about adults in that way, but you would not believe I mean, you would, but our audience would not believe some of the things that, you know, parents do when they come to the school and they have a concern. So, can you give us a synopsis of the article?
Well, they are basing this on an incident that they had in the previous year where it went all the way up to the federal courts. So you had a parent in there cutting up that badly that people are being sued and being sent all the way up to federal court.
To federal court because I think that the parent was interrupting the school operations, is what it was saying. And this is in the Tampa Bay Times, guys. So the parent was interrupting the school uh, continuously,
Right.
and the school ended up moving the student to another campus because of the parents concern. And so the federal court, I think they ruled in her favor, if I'm not mistaken. They ruled in the parents' favor because the school was punishing the student because of the parents' actions by moving them to another school.
And see, there's such a fine line there because whew, I have been in some really, in my principal days, there were some really hard decisions that had to be made. And when a parent comes up there and shows out, and if and typically it's because they feel like somebody wronged their child or some other
Yeah,
child
yeah.
wronged their child. And it doesn't matter how logical you are or how you try to explain to them the methodology in your thinking or the due process, all of those different things. It doesn't matter when they come up there angry, which of course I say is my number one. Don't come up to the school angry
You
because
can forget that. I don't even know why you said that
but
because
I
they
mean
are coming to the school angry. I was speaking with a parent. I hope she's watching. She's a good friend of mine. But she just went on and told me, honey, we just trying to, we don't know what to do. We just trying to protect our children. And so I get that. But we deal with the mama bears. Now, there is not another profession,
mm,
okay, where people can just come and just say what they want to say in the way that they do in schools. I think
right.
schools, we're almost bullied at
Yes.
this point. And I don't think, and this also goes into our topic for today. Like everything that we've chosen for today, like everything runs together. So it's probably just going to be one major conversation today
Right.
because I mean, at this point, schools are being bullied and they're being bullied by parents. I'm sorry. And I know we're not supposed to, maybe we're not supposed to talk about that. But at this point, that's what's happening.
Right.
Why do you feel it's okay to come to the school with such rage? Help me understand.
I don't understand it either because I will say, as a parent, there's many times there were things that I thought were my children were either not treated fairly or there was something that definitely, and it's hard to keep that balance as an educator because you don't want to
Mhm.
go up there telling people necessarily how to do their job, but
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
hard when you know how to do it better. But I mean, that's neither here or there. And
What?
um,
No.
I
Tell me
just
that you do not. Don't do that.
not
Well, okay.
everybody, not everybody.
I do understand though. I
Not
do
everybody.
understand.
I mean, and my children had some wonderful teachers, and some of them are friends of mine to this day. So if you're watching, I'm probably, and we're still friends. It wasn't
He's
you.
not talking about you.
Yeah, it's not you. But there were other teachers that, I wanted to go in and just wring their necks, or even administrators that had policies that were quite ridiculous.
Like
But
what?
okay. All right. So I've had phone calls from one of my favorites was one of my daughter's teachers,
Mhm.
and she called me about um, your child keeps going out of class and using the phone and leaving class. And I'm like, ma'am, you mean to tell me you keep letting her leave the class to go be on the phone and you
What
keep,
was she supposed to do though? I mean,
I mean, if my child is sitting in your class
yeah.
and even if they say, hey, I need to go to the restroom, cool, let the
Mhm.
child go to the restroom. 15 minutes later, and ain't nothing wrong with you. Can I go make a call? Okay. But then the next day you do the same thing, and the next day, and the next day, and
Yeah.
the next day. Who you
Yeah.
calling? I mean, at some point, and I'm not even saying the first time,
Mhm.
but what I will say what rubbed me wrong is I went there for a parent.
Look at your face.
I know
You're
I'm
already
sorry.
heading in an inappropriate direction.
It was headed there because I go there and you have me starting this conference. You start your conference with your positive degree. What are some things
Yeah.
academically?
Yeah.
She started off, let me tell you about your child.
No. Stop.
Right. I was like, wow, would it look
No.
bad for me to turn this whole desk over? It
Yeah,
would.
no. No.
But I had to stop, breathe, and say, okay, I professionally read her, but I did it in a way that was not threatening. And I just let her know that this is not how we're going to proceed with this conference. But I also knew the boundary of me getting loud, turning over tables, cussing her out was going to get us nowhere. Because now, how's she going to treat my child going forward?
But look, okay, so rarely ever do
Mm-hmm.
I have, and I know this is going to, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Um, Rarely ever do I see professional parents coming to the school with that type of demeanor. Now, that's just me,
Rarely.
and it could just be the schools that I've worked in, right? Those that are professional or have something to lose, some type of
Right.
career. I don't. I've not encountered. Now they do what you said you did, like they professionally read you, okay,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't hurt any less, but
I will be arrested for it, probably.
doesn't hurt any less, but I mean, this article is saying the yelling, the screaming, the threatening. Like how What are you doing? And I know it's true.
Yes.
I
Yes.
know it's true. You guys will not believe. One lady came up to the school when I was working. I'm not going to say where, but it's in a neighboring district. Okay. And she cussed me out because I got her child's name wrong on the phone. I mean, and the child's name was something that was, I mean, I was bound. It was destiny. I was destined to get it wrong because of the way you spelled it. I don't know how else I pronounced it the way it was supposed to have been pronounced
According
according
to the
to
phonics.
phonics, right? My phonemic awareness led me to this conclusion that it should be pronounced in this way. It was the way you spelled it. And I mean, when you spell it that way and then you get mad, I'm not talking about a like a gentle cussing. I'm talking about she cussed me all the way out
Wow.
because I mispronounced her child's name. Same parent came up to the school and almost daggone near. I said daggone
You
just
did
in
say
case my
that on
mama is
there.
watching, right?
Wow.
Okay. Daggone near held us hostage in the front office. I'm talking about she was just talking loud, talking about, her son. And this young lady, I don't know how old she was, but she had, I don't know how many children that were coming through. So we weren't through with her, you
Right.
know.
And it's
But
always the holes with the legacy kids. The kids that they got
legacy kids.
because they got kids for days. And these kids are coming through, and those be the worst ones. I'm like, do you know I have to see you again and again? This is a lose-lose for both of us. So we
Yeah.
might as well get
Yeah.
along.
We
You know,
might as well get along. And
right.
and for those of you who, didn't read the heading of our podcast today, the heading or the title is who you talking to.
Listen,
Now help me understand how you came up with that title, Web, because we all know, those of you who are Ed Rewired fans know that Web comes up with these titles.
well, as you can see, I strategically have my glasses off and the lighting low today because
Mhm,
these are the
mhm,
conditions you have to set for when you
mhm.
get into that mood of who you talking to.
There's
Because
no verb in that sentence,
no,
okay? Why did you eliminate the verb
I
in
elim-
that sentence?
I eliminated the verb because I did not want to be any misunderstanding that this is going to end up being a professional exchange by the time we're done talking.
Right? I'm
Because
talking about, people don't understand. At this point, people in schools are being bullied, okay, by the constituents,
yes,
by the parents, okay? And I mean, we're talking about SEL for kids. Come on, are you serious? We are verbally attacking. This is verbal assault that
absolutely,
takes place, okay?
absolutely.
Not to mention actual assault,
Yes,
okay? Because
yes.
we just talked about, I don't know if we were recording when we discussed it, but riding up to the school with all of your family members in the car to hop out. And I just saw a post on Facebook. I
Ooh,
sent it to you.
you did, and I am
Okay. And
sick
that's
of them.
this was from a principal, okay, that posted this. He said that he used to work at a school that had major discipline issues and had very low performance, which we know there is a correlation, right? Because the kids are not getting their seat time. They're not getting instruction because they're cutting up. So they're either at home, they're in ISS, or roaming the halls, or whatever the case might be. So he said a while back, a parent threatened to stab him,
Mm,
okay, because he suspended her child after her child attacked another child.
Have you Have you? I said you described.
If you scribe, Nessa is coming.
You ain't scribed to us. Hey, you. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? If not, do it right now. I don't see your name. Subscribe now. Educationally Rewired. Right. You had a suspension coming. Like, is that okay? You think that was okay for your child to do that and they should have no consequence?
What did you think? How did you see this ending? How do you think the parents saw this ending? What was supposed to happen?
In an orange jumpsuit. One or both of us were going to be in an orange jumpsuit because, listen, I'm going to do my job regardless. And I don't know what reason your child got beat up. And
how do you know they got beat up?
That's the only reason why you retaliate. Because when your child wins, you'd be like, okay, bet.
You'd be like, okay, they suspended.
Right. But when your child lose and they come home with a little beat up and battered, but and they honestly, it could have been something that was hateful. It could have been something wrong. Your child could have been targeted or bullied. I get it. And their child got beat up. Let us handle the situation, though. Don't come up there saying when we suspend, because a lot of times the suspension is for your child's benefit, because we need to de-escalate the situation. If we tell them to come back the next day, sometimes their children are in more danger because it's still hot. Yeah. And with kids, if you let that 3 days go by, at least they talking about something else by then, because they're kids. They're like squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. So they're talking about something else by then. And it gives you an opportunity to investigate and get down to it. So it lets the kids cool down. So a suspension is not just a consequence. It really has a lot of layers to it. So for you to come up there to try to fight, because I told your child to go to the house and put some ice on that knot on their head.
That's what she said. That's what this person said. They said, I ain't even done. I mean, her child attacked another child. And then it said the mother and several of her family members came to the school to confront that child, a 6th grade child. The child was in 6th grade.
See, that makes no sense.
But middle school is where all this ratchetness happens.
Yes.
I mean, it is. Middle school, this type of ratchetness happens in middle school. I have seen this same scenario like every year, at least once. Every time I'm in a middle school, I see this same scenario at least once a year.
Right. Well, I wasn't far from it working with freshmen. So,
right.
I had 2 young ladies. Well, one young lady, she was into it with some girls, and she started the mess. This was the bad part. She was just one of those little girls that just starts mess, little fires, and then moves on, starts another fire. Well, she decided to tell her god sisters to come up there because somebody responded to her negatively to her negative behavior.
Right.
Well, they came up there like they were gonna go. We're gonna go to lunch with our sister. Okay, so we scan their little IDs, set them on down the cafeteria with old girl. They go down there to charge up somebody else in my cafeteria. So of course my security, they didn't know my security was from Oak Cliff. So they was like everyone, they were ready. And so next thing I know, we getting these ladies come up hollering, screaming, getting pulled up out of my lunchroom. And I go, what we happened here? They said, well, they tried to fight some students. So now the mother bear in me was ready to take off my earrings and stilettos and go have a conversation with these young ladies, because what you're not going to do is come up to my school to fight my children. I mean, And children get into it. Children go back and forth, and we have to allow children to be children. Not to say that we condone their negative behaviors. We teach them and we try to train them. But when adults get involved with adults, with kids, that's a problem.
But you're not teaching them, okay? And you and I have had this conversation, but you're not teaching them when you gaslight the situation by giving them permission to engage in such behavior, right? And so it's not that, and I've shared this before. So I believe that children should defend themselves, no doubt.
Yes.
Like, defend yourself. Absolutely. Like, don't stand there looking crazy.
Right.
Defend yourself. Right. But there are things you don't have to say. You don't have to tell a child to defend themselves. Right. Unless they are on the spectrum or something like that. Right. But a normal child, right? You do not have to tell them to defend themselves. And just by you saying that, it empowers them to just be ratchet. And that's my thing with that. You know, you don't have to announce. If somebody hits you, you hit them back. We know you. I mean, I hope you wouldn't stand there. But if that's our regular conversation, and I'm not saying just like, you know, we have a intelligent conversation or whatever. What I'm talking about is those parents that really get passionate about it and you're just going on and on and on about it. That is not, I don't feel, now you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel that's an appropriate way to teach your children to defend themselves. I really don't, because it releases ratchetness.
I agree. There's a way, you know, there's certainly a way to address your kids not being run over and being doormats, you know, and talking to them in general about people taking advantage of them and, you know, sure, you know, they stand up for themselves in the right ways. You can have those conversations without telling your kid, somebody touch you, beat them down.
Not just beat them down, honey. They cussing with these kids.
Right. Oh, yeah.
These parents now, honey. But, you know, our parents, it just was taboo for you to use inappropriate language in front of children. But now you have to say language to adults. Because children are sitting right there and you're using inappropriate language in front of them. It's just so, it has gone left.
It has. And I will gone left. And I'll say that it is important to teach your kids to stand up for themselves, but in the right ways, because these behaviors come from their environments. They see their parents react in these ways at the grocery store, somebody getting the wrong change or to get their order wrong and they go left. They see these things and so they believe that these are the appropriate reactions. And then they see their parents come up to the school and do the same thing. And that's not okay. And so now
it's grown-up tantrums. And I don't think people connect it to so these adults that we see acting this way, when they were children, they acted that way as well. Okay. It's not, you don't just become this irate parent that just act like that. You had to be nurtured or developed in an environment that allowed you to do that. There was no one around to say at a young age, right? You know, you stop doing that. Well, what are you doing? Well, you know what I'm doing? I am checking attendance, and I see that some people have not subscribed to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, right.
Educationally Rewired.
Come on now, everybody's on that page now.
Well, I don't see them.
Well, I mean, they better get their whole life together because we have some things to talk about.
Tuesdays at 6 p.m. and don't be tardy.
Ugh. Please
where did the tardy people go?
Party people go to the ISS. Tardy suite, baby. We doing a tardy suite.
Right. like my bonus daughter, right? Like the last night she got mad because she wanted to sit in a particular seat in the vehicle, and we were like no, because she's too small to sit
Right.
there, right? Okay, so when we redirected her, she had an attitude. She didn't want to talk. Well, see, that kind of stuff needs to be addressed, and we addressed it. We were like, no, that's not how we handle situations. No.
Right.
When you hear us calling you, you respond. Do you understand? She goes, yes. So
Right.
you address it. You don't let it slide. It's not funny. It's
Right.
not funny.
Yeah.
It's
So
not something
let's
to be
talk about that.
videoed and
Let's
put
talk
on
about that,
TikTok.
because that's where a lot of these things come from. Your children react to the way that you have modeled for them is appropriate. You have modeled that it's okay for them to say things that they hear on stuff that they probably shouldn't be watching or hearing in the first place. And like you
Mhm.
say, you video it, you put it on TikTok, you're like, oh my God,
It's
look at
so
her.
funny. It's funny. I don't think it's funny when I see a 3-year-old being sarcastic, or a 3-year-old being smart mouth,
Right,
or witty and untrained.
right,
Like, they are human beings, and if you don't get it trained, they grow up to be these adults that come to the school and do whatever they want to do. They're not disciplined, is
right,
what's happening. They're not disciplined. And it's not just parents now. I know we're talking about parents right now, but it's not just parents. It's adults in general grow up to be undisciplined.
right,
You can say, like, I watch people that my granddaddy used to always say, watch people that talk all the time and undisciplined and stuff, watch those kind of people. And so I do, I watch people that feel I'm honey, because I gave them a piece of my I watch adults that
right. I
don't
need every
have
piece
the
of mine.
discipline
All right.
to control themselves when their emotions are heightened. I
Right.
watch
They
I
steadily
watch
giving
that.
away pieces of their mind. I need all my pieces. Um, so
Okay.
so
Okay.
yeah, I mean it's these behaviors, and they just pass them down generation after generation. We model this and we wonder why our children
Mhm.
are up there being aggressive. And then the next first time that they end up in court for something, we are saying,
We don't
oh,
understand how they got there.
right, and we're crying, and now, oh my God, I don't know how they got off track. Well, it
You're
happened.
off track.
They
You
got
just haven't committed a crime, but you're off,
you're
or
off
a
track
crime that you've been caught for, but
now.
you're off track. No
Now,
one has pressed charges for the verbal assault that you
right. So let me premise this. This is not a 100% thing, because trust me, I had the pleasure, and I can vulnerably say this, to have a beautiful child that tested every bit of me, every bit of my gangster. And I was, and I kept a very strict and uh,
Mhm.
very regimented household.
Right.
However, this child did find his or her way to I
Okay.
won't call them out like that, but if you know me, you know which one of my
Yes.
blessed
Yes.
children, to try every bit of my gangster. And so there were things that he or she got involved in that required us at one point to go to court. And I had to say, man, where did you get this from? Because you don't see this. This behavior is not modeled to you.
Yeah.
But when I really dug down to the root of it, I realized that this child did assault someone in defense of someone else. And I
Mm.
was like, okay, that doesn't make it okay, because you put your hands
Right. Right.
on friends. But at least I would had that reassurance that, okay, no, it wasn't because your mama out there wilding out in these streets, but it was because,
Her personality is she's a protector.
or
He
he
or she is a protector.
yes, yes. But no, but honestly, so I want to put that out there, that we're not saying just because your child cuts up, it's always because of you. But a lot of times,
Now, the ones that I see, it is because of those parents, because
right,
the parents do the same thing. That's
right,
what these are the ones we're talking about. Okay. The
right.
parents do the same thing. Like the kids, I had a families who come up to my school, right? All of them had on now they took the time to wear the same outfit. This lets me know that this was premeditated. Everybody had on a white t-shirt and gray jogging pants and sneakers. Okay. Everybody that
Wow.
got out the car had on the same outfit. I know what you're about to do.
Wow. They
Looking
got
for
fight
a
outfits.
student. They were looking for a student, and I just thought, now this was freshmen. These were freshmen. This was a freshman family. This the
Mhm.
mama, all the cousins, like everybody is in the car. They just kept hopping out. And when you're the administrator of a situation like that, it seems like it never ends. So it was probably no more than what, 4 or 5 people in that car, but I felt like they just kept hopping out the car because
Like a
it
clown car.
because somebody was like, "Oh my god, like
Well, the
why?"
fact that one person hopped out of the car is a problem. You know, and this scenario that you say is not foreign. That's the crazy part.
It's not foreign.
I've had it happen too many times. And then, what really is funny to me, the parents that come in there and they play innocent, like, yeah, I'm up here to talk to you about how my son's being bullied. And I went up to when, he was getting off the bus and I saw this, but then there's video of the parents acting a donkey at either the bus stop or the parking lot. And so once I placed that in front of them, like exhibit A, they're like, I said, do we still want to continue this conversation the same way? Or do we want to end this and everyone takes their consequences before I call the police on the fact that you were harassing minors? Or if I just get their parents involved and say, hey, guess what? They made this a grown folks issue. Here's the video of their parent up there. You don't want that. So, and then they back down like, oh, well, okay. I didn't realize it was like that. Yeah, it's like that because you can't come up here talking crazy like we don't know you ratchet too. Like, who are you talking to?
Honestly, there are people before me that did not grow up in that era of technology. But it is 2022. And as sure as they learn how to use that cell phone, they can learn how to do the different things and applications that are going to be beneficial for students. You can, Grandma. You can too learn how to.
You can, Grandma.
Yes, somebody's aiming.
Why can't it be Grandpa? Why is your bias coming out? Why?
Because it be them honoring grandmothers. Let's be real. Papa usually,
Grandma.
Papa usually will just be quiet and take it. And maybe
like
no verb.
I've got
no verb.
No verb. I got receipts. I have evidence like that you're ratchet too. So if your child gets involved in an altercation, whether who started or finished it, they will have consequences. Don't come up there talking crazy. But all this is not just limited to when their children get in trouble. This is also when they feel like
they didn't get the right grade.
Right. Policy procedure doesn't fit their standard that day. Any of those things, they come up there and
teacher calls too much.
Yeah. Or don't call enough.
If they don't call, it's a problem. If they call too much, it's a problem. It's like there's no winning here. And I feel like we are the recipients of, maybe some, I don't want to say mental health because of the way it'll be perceived, but it's like we are the recipient of the trauma. That's a better word.
Yes.
Of the trauma that is going on in their lives. And so we're the recipient of it. It's like an abusive relationship, but we're the ones that are being abused, right? And we are being groomed to just say, okay, I understand. And that's called professionalism. And I
Right.
just am like, are you serious?
Right. And they leave and go on about their lives while we're sitting there holding this burden now that you have dropped in our lap. And I'm got to pick up the pieces because you either tore up my front office or you have disrupted the school day in such a way that now that's all the kids are talking about, because all it takes is one kid to walk past and see.
Oh yeah,
like,
with a camera, because it's
Right.
on. It is online now.
Right.
I wouldn't, when I was the better part of my admin career, I'll say maybe half and half. I'm not sure. I think the better part was, kids didn't have phones like that, or they had it, but the beauty of working in some of the high need schools is you might have it, but you need Wi-Fi for it to work.
Yep.
So you don't have no service. You just have a phone, that part. But now, as an administrator, you can go ahead and bet somebody, the staff, the kid, the parent, somebody, the visitor, the school visitor, someone has recorded this interaction.
Right. I can't tell you how many times I had to say, baby, hold your phone out, go to settings. I'm about to hit delete. So, and reset your phone, because right now we have a problem. And they're like, oh, man, Miss Webb. Yeah, this is what has to happen, because I can't guarantee that you're not going to send this back out. I mean, I can't tell you how many times dreams or had big old overgrown football-sized kids crying because I'm about to reset this phone. And I'm going to call your mom and let her know that this is what's about to happen, because we videotaped the foolishness that is going on. And sometimes I'm like, man, I should have caught that video so people can see how
you act.
And
honestly, they don't how when kids go to daycare or whatever, they have the cameras in the classroom or whatnot, so the parent can tune in at any time. And I know this would probably be a cluster, but yeah, my mom's watching, so I know this would probably be a cluster. This would be a cluster, but I really do think they probably do need cameras in class. Okay. It is going to be a PR nightmare. Okay. Oh, yeah. I know it is, but maybe it'll get some people to act right. And I say that because it's not always the parent and the student. Okay. We have teachers. Okay. And administrators now. Come on. Everybody. Okay.
Yes, we do.
That say little sly remarks. Everybody knows in professionalism, sarcasm is not welcome.
No,
not at all. Stay away from sarcasm altogether. And I am horrible, about sarcasm and having a little. One time, this boy, he was so mad at me. It was so funny because I don't even remember what I said to him. Okay, he was in trouble for something, and I don't remember what I said to him. All I remember is his reaction, and he was like, "Hey, miss, I don't really understand what you just said, but I feel like you were trying to take a dig at me. I just felt like it wasn't right. I don't know what and that's the thing about sarcasm. They may not understand what you're saying, and this is parents too, like parents and students, and your colleagues. Okay, they may not understand everything you're saying or understand your like what your ultimate goal for what you said, but how they felt when you said it, they remember that.
Well, I agree with that. And that was kind of two things that I really impressed upon was when we speak to parents, that we speak to them, and I'm not saying it in a degrading way when I say this, but we're speaking really almost at a third grade level, because we need to say it in a way that they understand. For us to throw out a bunch of educational jargon, it's not going to get the message across. And if we really want to communicate, the purpose of communicating is that there's understanding on both ends. So for me, just to throw a bunch of educational jargon and a bunch of acronyms, because we're good about that in
Yeah,
education.
we're very good with acronyms.
Right. It's not beneficial. So on that end, that was something that I like to impress upon. But my biggest was with teachers was you can discipline someone and keep their dignity intact.
You can do that.
And that was a non-negotiable for me on my campus. When they asked about my non-negotiables, that was huge. I don't want to hear you screaming at a kid, because you can just say it and they still have to do what you say.
And if their parents were there, would you still scream at that kid?
Right.
And if the answer is no, you wouldn't, then you should not be screaming at them. I don't know. And this is what they do. And all the administrators around the nation are going to cheer me on for what I'm about to say, right? Every last one of them. If you've dealt with discipline in any form, you are going to enjoy and be so satisfied. You can take this clip of what I'm about to say and just play it at your faculty meeting, because this is what happens. And we know it happens. We can't all the way prove it, which is why we need cameras in the classroom. But some teachers are so ratchet in that classroom, and they are saying so many inappropriate things, okay, in the classroom, and they gaslight these kids and they get them mad, okay? And then when the student responds, because they're not as mature as we are, right?
Right.
So when they get tired and they respond, or they are on your level and they can be witty with you.
Right.
Now you're upset because maybe the kid embarrassed you in front of the class, or maybe they approached you or confronted you in front of the class and responded in front of the class in the same manner that you were antagonizing them, right? And then what do they say? Get out. Now, what? And then they want us to suspend them.
Right.
Suspend the student. But we don't get to the beginning where you you provoke that student to this behavior. And now you're trying to act innocent. And we have a lot of that takes place.
So much. Students are provoked at times. So, honey, I'm not saying that every time your child comes home that they're, but there many times they are provoked. And it's because, and I think it is a domino effect. Teachers get stressed, they're tired, and it could be something that from the class before or whatever. Or
it could be home. It could be anything.
And they go off on your child, and that's not okay.
It's not okay. Who you talking to?
Right. Who are you? No. Who are you talking to?
Who you talking to?
And these kids, like you said, they're not mature enough to say that, I shouldn't go there because this is an adult and I should respect my elders. Well, you didn't respect them. We don't often give them the respect. We say they're minors and we can talk to them any kind of way. And we can't, because again, we're modeling behavior for them. So now when they go do this to somebody else and you're like, I can't believe they did that. Well, you were part of the teaching that went on of teaching them the inappropriate responses. It doesn't matter what a kid does. You can't have adult expectations of children. And I think that's what helped me keep a level head. And not to say that I didn't have a couple of not so bright moments. I'll be real. I had some not so bright moments earlier in my career that I'm like, I wish I would have said that to that kid like that.
Because everybody has. I think everybody has had those moments. Some of us are able to get away with them, and some of us are not.
I went through a couple things in some of their ear, like, But I think what we learn later on is there are certain things you can say to students once you build that relationship and that rapport.
And that's what's lacking, right?
It's not there.
It's never. I heard a superintendent say one time, you don't have a classroom management issue. You have a relationship issue.
Yes.
That is truly what that is. So teachers are out here in these streets being rude and disrespectful as well.
Right.
Okay. So it's not just the parents and the students. Sometimes it is the teacher, but it ain't just the teacher, honey. Because
Mm-mm.
you have some administrators that speak to
Oh my
teachers
gosh.
as if they are a lower class, honey. And I disapprove.
I I was, I work somewhere, and I won't
Mhm,
speak on that because I actually in two environments, because I've
mhm,
made amends with both of these people, women leaders, and I think they are very, very, very brilliant women leaders, might I
mhm,
say. But there were some things in their leadership that they would talk to you and talk down to you till people were crying. I just was, I was a little hardcore, so I didn't really care. But I'm just looking at them like, you got one more time, and we just gonna have a misunderstanding. But everybody else wasn't like that. Teachers can tend to be more on the emotional side. I
mhm.
just wasn't. So I heard them correct teachers in such an verbally abusive way. I can't believe you did that. Was so idiotic. That was stupid. Why would you do that? I mean, how could you be so dumb and I've heard these things like live, and all I knew was in my leadership, I just knew I would never do that to someone. There's a better way to communicate and get your point across, even when someone is wrong or when they're doing something that is not the way that you want it to be done.
Right, right.
I'm a big proponent of that. Like, you have to be able to correct people leaving their dignity intact. And
Yeah, I am too. But I had to grow to that point
yeah,
because I was one of those administrators that spoke inappropriately to
no, Stevens, no.
hey, I'm not going to call everybody out and not call myself out. I
Okay.
am going to say that I am a reformed ratchet. I am reformed ratchetness.
Oh my
I
God.
had great mentors though, right? This is like early in my career. Like if you saw or if you've seen my leadership, you would never really know, but I had to grow to that point. Because and I didn't understand until my mentor kind of brought that out, and here is what people people who do that or leaders who do that don't understand. You will reap what you sow,
Yeah.
okay? And it might not come up now, but when it has matured, it will come up when you don't want it to come up.
Right. Yeah.
And then you will be on the opposite end of that, right? So I was younger in my leadership career when all these things happened, but I had a superintendent nonetheless
Right.
scream at the top of her lungs at me
Oh wow.
and say what she felt like she wanted to say to me. And at the time, and we got everything right, but at the time that she was talking to me, she just had a misperception. Like
Right.
what she thought was going on wasn't even going on.
Right.
But I was amazed that she was screaming at the top of her lungs. But do you know, wow. And in my mind, I was saying, who you
Oh,
talking to? Like that very sentence. But and also what crossed my mind was I can't even say, look, I've done this before and I am reaping what I sow. And some people just need to go on and you just need to go ahead and accept
right. Right.
that some of these things that are happening to you,
Right.
everything that has happened in my career was not a surprise.
Right.
Okay. Some things I'm like, I totally get it. I get it because I have done it,
Right.
and that's what was happening there is when she did that, I held my peace so good, girl. And when
Well,
she finished, I was able to, and I know this was nothing but God. I'm trying to tell you,
yes.
I knew if even if my salvation was questioned in any way, that day, I earned all of my heavenly rights. Okay.
First of all, it's not healthy. And what federal guideline is saying that mess is going to feed our children?
Michelle Obama. I'm sorry,
Michelle.
and I love her. And I love her.
Michelle,
Madam Michelle. Let's put some respect on her name. I got her in my phone. Look, you think I'm lying?
Call her. Call her. Let's talk about this.
Look, we both said the same time.
What did it say?
Press call.
Michelle Obama.
Michelle Obama. I got her under favorites. I got her listed. I have Oprah Winfrey's listed. Bishop Jakes is under there.
How many have responded to me?
Girl, they don't even have real numbers. Like,
but they're in her faves. I love this.
See, that's what
I added some numbers so I can add them to my favorites. I earned all
been
of
there.
them.
I have been there with an administrator. In my department meeting, I am over this department and I'm running my meeting and they stop me and tell me how incompetent I was and how I mean it was and so the whole time I'm sitting there going, oh, Father God, okay, and you start envisioning yourself and how you look in orange, and in your mind you're taking off your earrings and you're putting on your attendance shoes because you're like, this is not going to go well, because you could very well have spoken to me about this before or after this meeting, and it was not necessary for you to try to make me look bad in front of my team. So I immediately set up a meeting with her because it was, look, we're going to talk about this because I respect you as per who you are. I respect the wisdom that you bring, but what you cannot do is try to call me out in front of a bunch of people and think that's going to
and think it's going to fly. Yeah, I had to learn to, high school taught me that. My first leadership assignment was in high school. I encourage anybody that is going into leadership to go to high school, be a leader.
Right. Yes.
It will train you for the world. Okay?
Yes, everything.
I was a middle school teacher moving into a leadership position at a high school. Okay. I was like in my late 20s. Everybody, almost everyone who was a teacher there was older than me, and I just felt like I needed to, I don't know what I felt like. I do, because I've talked about it in some of my leadership webinars and stuff, right? So, and in a podcast, a previous podcast that we've done, I talked about how leadership was taught to me. You do whatever the leader tells you to do. Right. And so when I became a leader, it was like, oh, finally, it's my turn. And now everyone has to do what I say do. Right? Totally wrong. So totally wrong. But it really was a cultural difference. It was a cultural difference. I think it was a cultural difference because that's just how I was raised, to respect authority, to not question authority, to not, that's how I was raised. So when I became the authority, I thought that's what everyone was supposed to do. And so I get it. These people who are out here in these streets, you're hollering and screaming, yelling and all of that. Okay. There is a certain grace that I will give you. And I have learned to endure until they finish, because a lot of times, and I learned this from one of my previous mentors, there's so many things going on that have absolutely nothing to do with me. Like nothing to do with me. It doesn't hurt less when you do these things, right? It doesn't hurt less, but I do understand, like the superintendent that I was telling you about. I understood full well why she went in that direction. And I knew from the moment she opened her mouth that there was a misperception. So I just waited until she finished. And then I shared, how I felt in a calm manner, right? I was calm. That's why I said I earned my heavenly rights, because I remember a day it wouldn't have went down that way.
Absolutely.
I remember.
And you know what I say, really just kind of my summation of thoughts on this is really that, you know, you can you're not getting any ground by yelling, screaming, acting a fool. Nothing
Mhm.
is being accomplished. Now people aren't listening and now we're on defense.
Right.
These are people with feelings. And then I always say this. This is my biggest thing that I say out there. One of
Okay.
these days, you're going to run up on the wrong one,
The wrong one.
because that administrator, you don't know what hood they're from. You don't know how they're the first one in their families to have a professional career and graduate college, and all it takes is just that ounce to pull that hood back out of them. You don't know that. And so instead of finding out the hard way, because I always say, you know, it's always a scenario of somebody's going to jail, somebody's going to hell. That means somebody's going to die and somebody is going to hurt. And you don't want to be in the midst of that scenario. It doesn't have to be that way. So just stop and think. Administrators, I urge you to put some policies in place that will help de-escalate. Like one that I did was have the parent that is angry write a statement first, because now if you got to write and get some things
Yep.
down,
Have
and
them
then
sit down.
yes, sit down, write the statement of how you feel, everything that happened in grave detail, and then I will make an appointment for you to talk to the appropriate administrator at that time. But
I've learned to match their energy, you know, or match their, what I mean by that is match their level of concern. Okay. So I understand that when parents come up, or teachers, or anybody, and anybody who's interacted with me, they're going to tell you that, you know, if they come to me and they're like, I can't believe this is happening. I'm like, what? Me either. What happened? I, you know, because I have to get that parent to the point where they understand that I am just as concerned as they are about whatever is happening. Like that group of the family members that got out of the car, to me, it just seemed like they just kept getting out. But the ones that got out of the car, I was able to stop them before they found the student that they were looking for. And that was how I got them inside the school. Was I matched their level of concern. I matched their energy. They were mad and they wanted to fight somebody, and but really what they're saying is they are concerned. And so what we're dealing with is a group of people that have not learned how to express themselves in or how to communicate their concern in any other way. This
Right.
is the way that they have learned that they get a response, is by behaving this way.
Right.
And so I match their level of concern. And they were so mad, where I'm looking for so and so, and I'm like, what? They tell me what happened, and I'm like, no, not on my campus, no way. I tell you what, they're here. Are they here? Do you know they're here? And they were like, no, but we don't look for. I was like, well, hold on, wait a minute, because something needs to be done about this.
Yes.
Follow me to my office. Come on. And I turned around, walked off. I was hoping they would follow.
Right.
And they did. They followed. I got them in. I said, look, here, take these statements. I need you to write down every single thing you share with me out there. Write it all down. I walked out, got in the hallway, girl, and I said, I need security up. Security.
Right.
I need security up to the
Right.
office. And then I told security what happened, right? And when I told security what happened, I said, now we're going to go back in there. They're all writing. Okay. When we go back in there, I'm going to tell them that you're here for them. Okay. And he was like, no doubt. I got you. So we walked in. I said, now I done went out and got security, honey, because you might need to file a police report today. I
Right.
just want to make sure something has happened. You know,
Yeah. These are the things you have to do. You have to do these things.
You do have to do these things. You have to, and for principals who have young administrators, I'm sure there are quite a few now, right, who have these new administrators. You need to train your administrators on these situations. Don't just assume everybody knows how to handle these situations. They don't know what to do. They don't know what the next step is. Like, Webb and I, we probably kind of, felt our way through and kind of figured it out. But you have to be like that.
I trained my receptionist what to do when someone comes in there a certain kind of way. There was like a certain signal that she had. If she got on the radio and said, "A parent assist in the front office," that means security needs to come assist a parent to find another location, typically. But that doesn't, but those things I had to train them on. I had to train the people that this is what needs to happen. I mean, and granted, it didn't hurt that I had me some old hood.
You did. You had some really good. I love them.
Love them to this
I
day.
hope they're watching. I love them today.
Yeah, it was a one situation, like when those girls came to fight this student, they were like, "Miss Webb, go on in the building. We got this. Go on. You don't need to hear this." I said,
"Walk out."
And I went right back out of the building, and I peeked through my window, and I was like, "Oh, because at this point they were talking so big and bad, and they were like, "Oh, who are you talking to?" I want to have food in their hand. They put it down on the ground and said, "Miss Webb, there's some Oak Cliff stuff about to happen right here. You going on back in that building?" And I said, they said, "Don't worry, Miss Webb. They're about to leave property. Trust me, they're about to leave property." And I said, "Got it." And by then the police were called and all of that was going to happen. But it doesn't hurt to have you a couple hood security officers on staff. But that all goes back to, you better know who you talking to when you start talking.
That's it. I'm gonna end it there. I think that's enough.